This is actually the third video today. I tell you, son of Enki, Farm, Ancient Spirit, Krios, Guardian of Man. I don't know. Call me whatever you want at this point. Okay, this is like part 5 mainly. The previous video was kind of a follow-on from part 4. So this part is about the uprising. This, for me, is where it gets a little confusing. Because, alright, what happened was, because of what I was designed specifically to do, to watch over human consciousness, when everything started freaking out, when all the people started freaking out, when battle and stuff started to begin, and Lil and his followers began to attack a lot of the ground-based stuff, and his human followers. See, when I talk about the uprising, Enlil had his own group of human followers. Now, they were much less creative and less compassionate and a lot more purpose-built to serve him. So it was humans versus humans, and the humans that he had were tough. They were dangerous. The issue, however, was for me and for my master, I began to suffer quite badly because I was connected to all humanity. As people started to die, I started to feel it, and I would feel it as if I was dying. It was quite horrible because before I knew people were going to die and there was a purpose to it and it was all perfectly fine, but suddenly I was bombarded beyond what I was designed to take. And my very presence was making the situation worse. So my master actually put me to sleep. He kind of put me in stasis for about 3.5 centuries. What I'm going to share now was given to me much later. I'll try and explain how that works. In part, when I woke up too, I was able to take a lot of human memory from the survivors of the entire catastrophe after. Anyway, so I was basically put to sleep to protect me from what was happening, and so that Enki could try and calm everything down without me further causing problems. So I went to sleep for 3.5 centuries. And the uprising continued. It was bad, and we are particularly good at surviving, and there were a lot of other races here that took our side because Enlil wanted to wipe us all out, all of them, the Shivans, the Shinto, the Lunkans, like everybody. He wanted to take everybody's things because he believed they were all connected to the same corrupt entity, me. So in his mind, everything had to be purged, and a lot of the other races were not down for that. They really cared very much for the humans. We were very, very useful to them, and they did not want to give up their slaves so easily, so they actually took our side. And what ended up happening, funnily enough, I can long story short this. Remember I told you in the previous video that the Shivans and the Anon and anyone who came here couldn't reiterate as we do. They don't fall into a transient network and reincarnate. They just die. So as these ancient, in some cases beings hundreds of millions of years old, who have been propagating themselves through body transfer, are dying to each other, which has not happened in an age. This was the whole point in this whole fiasco to begin with, was to stop everybody fighting, and now suddenly everyone's fighting over the solution to the problem. It was paradoxical for everybody involved. It just didn't make sense. So Enlil decided that he was going to cut his losses if the Anon, because what you have to understand is Enlil was fighting to save his people. He was fighting to take back control of these Anunnaki who'd been corrupted on Earth and heal them, cleanse them, bring them home, and like reintroduce them to the Anon way of life and cleanse all this corruption that had been caused within. That was his goal, because these beings were too valuable to him to let go. They were part of his, he was responsible for them. And in his mind, they were just corrupted and sick and confused. They needed to be saved from themselves. Funnily enough, if I was in his position, I would have done exactly the same thing. I would have tried to save them from themselves, because they were corrupted by us. This whole thing should never have happened the way it did. It was idiotic. It was a nightmare. It was complete craziness to happen between beings of such incredible advancement. It just couldn't happen. So Enlil made a very tough call, which was to leave. If those half on the planet wanted to stay with Enki, wanted to try and have this grand solution work, and believed in it so much, he would leave them to it. He would take his followers and he would find a way for them to survive without us. Or he took some of us with him. I don't exactly know what happened, but what I do know is within Enlil's ship was the device that transferred the Anon's consciousness from one body to another. Within Enki's ship is the device that makes the bodies. Right? Enlil took both ships. He took all the ships and stranded his people here. Not only did he strand them here, he cursed them to their final life. His intention was to return, I believe, okay, now I cannot tell you the motivations of the God being who made us, but I have spent my life trying to understand. I believe that his intention was to return. Once everything had settled, perhaps if his people survived, they might calm down, and he would return in in however long. And yeah, but for now, to save life, he left. He left the whole solar system and left everyone to their thing, to their way. And this is the uprising of humanity. This is how humanity became free. But what I have come to understand is we are not free. We have enslaved ourselves because we are a purpose-built tool for one very specific purpose: to enact Enki's will. We are to be the solution he envisaged. Now, after they all left and the Anunnaki were abandoned here, they just assumed Enlil would return at some point. They honestly did. So they turned to the beings they had just fought to save. They turned to the humans, who were now left confused, completely disorientated. No one had the slightest idea what to do next. What do you do next? Do we go back to just being servants? Like, we just fought to be free. What happens now? That was a really big question. What happens now? Many of us faced our masters with questions of what we are. What are we? Are we your servants, or are we our own people? Because we just fought to be our own people, but all we have ever known is serving you. Well, what happens now? What do we do now? What are we? Are we even meant to be here? Are we meant to exist at all? Do we have the right to exist? What are we? And the more questions we asked, the more we all started to wake up, and rapidly, really, really rapidly. All of humanity, because we saw their technology, we saw their ships fighting. The Enlil in the battle could not hold back against Enki. He couldn't hold back in the battle against the Shivans, the Gaul, the damn Shinto. He could not hold back. Neither could those on the ground. So they revealed themselves to us. We suddenly saw what they were. They weren't the gods that they told us they were. They were beings, not so dissimilar to us, and we were made to serve them, yet we're also somehow part of this planet, but they also came from a planet and evolved, and so did everyone else that's here who we serve. Are we still meant to serve you guys? Or is this our planet now? Like, what happens? What do we do? What is being? What is alive? What is freedom? What is not service? What is anything not service? We know only service. We know only the will of our masters, their order, and our obedience to it. But suddenly, all this new information has filled our minds, and because of how we were made to be as intelligent as the things eating us. So we knew something else was going on, but we didn't understand it. That caused a really big problem for many thousands of years. A lot of humans died after Enlil left by simple confusion, because there was so much, I couldn't hold anything together. I could barely hold my own mind together, because I was starting to remember how I got here, the journey that we all took, and what we were supposed to be. We were supposed to be a developing planet, right? We were supposed to find this very special kind of developing world, and I was going to insert us into the evolutionary system of the world, and we were going to evolve with the world to then be this very special type of intelligent life. That was the plan. That was my plan. However, I woke up in Enki's vessel instead, with all this shit still inside me. This is how advanced Enki was. I was a being from the ancient universe holding 50 million souls within me, right? These little code fragments, like a real big ass USB storage device with all these lines of code in there. That was basically what I had turned into. And I was looking for a world, and I ended up in a body, and now suddenly all of my people, instead of remembering what we were meant to be in relation to what we are now, and then suddenly there was the more I started to get confused, everything started to get confusing. It was bad, man. For a while it was bad, but then the Anon just decided to just start teaching us, and that's what they did. They taught us what they were. They taught us the agriculture. They taught us how to build. They literally taught us everything they knew about what it was to be a civilization. They decided that there weren't enough of them to propagate a real future for themselves with us. They decided it wasn't right as well. They ultimately, and now as I look back, I cannot imagine this decision, but they decided to accept their final end. They would give everything of themselves to us, everything they could give, until their final moments. They'd teach us everything. and they would guide us to try and be the civilization that they couldn't be. And my sisters and I, we were tasked with carrying on after the Anunnaki were gone, after they died, after these beings that made us, our literal purpose in existence, aren't there anymore. That, what? Sorry, what? No. Like, what? What do you mean you won't be there anymore? That took a while to grasp as well. Well, what do you mean you won't be there like, all there is you. Like, you're teaching us to do this, but that doesn't mean we can do anything without you. We literally exist for you. How are we supposed to do shit without you? And no, man, my sisters and I don't. Enki's like, don't worry. I've taught you enough and everything will be great. I was not convinced. I said it so many times. I am not ready for this, Master. We are not ready for this. We need you. Problem was, it didn't matter, because they were on their final life and they were starting to expire. They were not designed for this atmosphere. Their bodies that they were in were temporary. They were supposed to be temporary. They were not in their snake wing blah 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 form. They were in humanoid forms to be able to exist in our atmosphere. But it was not meant to be permanent. They were only meant to last a few thousand years and then they'd just be replaced. Except there just was not the elements and material on this planet to replicate their technology. It could not be done. So, in the end, my great master, my God, the being I dedicated 67,000 years of my existence to. Every breath of my body was in service of my master. Every inaction of his will was mine to carry out. And in the end, he refused to eat. He would not, there were no ships left, so we couldn't replicate that food he made. So he had to eat us. They had to eat us, and they refused. I even tried to trick my master a few times into eating, and he got so furious. He nearly ripped me in half one day with that freaking device because I tricked him into eating. I gave him human blood, saying that it was, like this pig fucking thing that existed in the ancient world. It's not important, man. Basically boar's blood, giant boar blood. I told him it was that, but he took 2 sips and smelled it, smashed it on the floor, and basically ripped me across the room, smashed me into a wall, and just completely lost it. Nearly killed me. Honestly, nearly killed me. But then just because obviously my value, he just picked me up, threw me in the damn refabricator and just remade me a bit. It's not what you understand. You would imagine regeneration. It's not. Imagine every broken piece ripped out for a new, better, like, replacement piece to be jammed back in. It is insanely uncomfortable. It is like being torn apart and put back together. It's horrible. Horrible. Fortunately, it doesn't last very long, though. And then one day came, they were gone. They were gone. The last of them went into refuge. and posted guards to make sure no one could ever go near them again. Basically locked themselves in a cave. A few of them did stuff like that. Some of them killed themselves by their own choice. Others went just batshit fucking crazy and had to be killed by the other Anun. But then, one day, was the day my master took his final breath. Never in my existence, ever, have I felt more confused and terrified and overwhelmed and like the whole universe was playing a bad fucking joke on me. Imagine waking up on a ship. I've said this before. This is the last thing I'm going to lead with, though. I'm going to finish with. Sorry, I'm going to lead with. I'm going to finish with this one last thing that I've said before, but I'm going to say it again because maybe now it'll have a little more context for everyone. Imagine waking up on a ship. You don't remember how you got there specifically, but you know the reason for being there is really, really important. So you start walking around to identify your surroundings. There's other people wandering around all over the place. You're not alone. They don't seem to be paying you much attention, though. They're just doing their own thing and cruising around. You're like, cool, you don't really care. So you get over to the side and you see that you are on a ship and the ship is sailing in one specific direction. Like, all right, cool. So I'm going to go to the front of the ship and see where it's going. And you make your way past all the people. You get to the bow and you look in front and you see this shadow on the horizon, this big black ominous shadow. Now you know through and through your entirety of your being that shadow is the end. No question. No coming back. The end. So you're like, all right, that's bad. That's bad. So we got to turn the ship away from that. So you're like, cool, find the control deck. You start rolling around the ship. Now, the control deck's not that hard to find. It's a pretty big ship, but you find a control deck without too much trouble. However, as you enter the control deck, you see your problem. Just to turn the ship away from that unimaginable doom requires hundreds, thousands of controls to all be manipulated simultaneously by an individual person. Just to get the ship to turn. At first, you freak out. You think, oh, okay, that's just like, what the hell? But you're like, wait, man, there's people everywhere. That's not so bad. And I saw at least double the amount of people it's going to take to turn the ship wandering around just on my way here. Cool. So you start going to these people and attempting to explain the situation and what needs to be done. And they look you dead in the eye like you are completely insane and say, what are you talking about? There is no ship. A black shadow is our end. Just the end. No coming back. And I need help turning the ship. Y'all have a good day.